5 weeks of pre-nursing training, I walk onto my first ward, age 17. Royal Prince Alfred Hospital, wearing the badge, was my training hospital, full of very unwell, acutely ill patients. I arrive at my shift, wearing my fob watch, my nurse's fob watch. This is my second one. I can take your pulse, by the way. At 6:45 a.m, ready for a 7 a.m. handover where we find out about our patients. 11:30 a.m, someone passes away with leukemia. A young man with two young children. This is a haematology ward that I did my first rotation on. This was my first shift as a student nurse. So Madam Toastmaster and Toastmasters, this is about my journey as a student nurse, as a protege, and my experience with mentoring, how it actually affected me. So I'll just digress from the story for a moment and talk about mentoring. What is mentoring? Mentoring is creating a supportive environment for someone to grow. Our mentor is someone that's more experienced in a particular area, and they're providing an environment of caring and kindness and unconditional support. I have your back, says the mentor to the mentee. It's a relationship of trust, and it creates fertile ground for someone to grow. Sadly, back to my story, there was no mentoring in my early student days. So the culture of nursing back then was a culture of fear. We had a hierarchy. It went from matron to 3rd year to 2nd year to 1st year, and I was 1st year at this point. Matrons were scary. They would do rounds and check on everything and make sure it's perfect. Matrons were like, if you can imagine Ms. Trunchbull out of Matilda, combined with a junkyard Doberman. If you met a matron and you had to do a round with her, she would rip your self-esteem to shreds. The culture was a culture of fear, and unfortunately, nurses did not grow in that culture. So when a round would occur, floor 1 would call floor 2, floor 2 would call floor 3, matron's on her way. It's like the tom-tom drums were resounding. There's a battle about to occur. She would check on everything. We had to make everything perfect. If you had a really sick patient, you had to sit them up in bed and tuck them in tightly, even if they were vomiting. We had to tie up all the curtains. We had to take off all our makeup. If you had nail polish on the night before, you had to make sure it was off. Otherwise, she would just rip you to shreds. Earrings off, perfect uniform. She would do a round with you and make sure everything was perfect on the ward. Otherwise, she'd just rip your self-esteem to shreds. So you're getting the picture of what it was like as a student nurse, a culture of fear. I survived, and 3 years into my 3rd year, 2 years later, I found a wonderful nursing mentor. It was one of my last wards, a gynecology ward, and this woman, she was in her 60s, she was an older woman, she was nurturing, she was a good leader, she was well respected. She was somewhere between a mixture of, she had the strength of Julia Gillard and the nurturing of Mary Poppins. She provided an environment of mentoring, much like Toastmasters does. She had, when she taught you anything, she would be a good leader, and she would show you how to do a task and not shame you if you got it wrong. She showed patience if you were doing a procedure and you dropped something, and she would have the grace to allow you to make that mistake. She provided the environment of care and support, and if there was a complaint against you as a nurse, she would have your back. So in that environment, I grew. And at the end of my training, I actually finished my training feeling really resilient about being a nurse, really resilient about myself, really liking myself, really enjoying my professionalism, because I finally had a role model. And I think that's what Toastmasters offers us. In this environment, with all the guidance that Toastmasters provides, this wonderful caring and kind support, this respect and integrity and trust and good communication, it provides this great structure for us to grow and to grow our communication and grow our leadership skills. So, on reflection of my journey as a protege, as a student nurse, I actually thank the Ms. Trunchbolds of my experience to know how not to mentor. And when I'm a mentor, I'm probably not going to be Mary Poppins, I'm not going to be Julia Gillard, I'm just going to be myself. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Kim, for that very insightful speech about what it's like to be a student nurse back when you were doing nursing. Wow, what a rough gig. That very first day would have been tough. So our third and final speaker for this evening will be Kylie Raynor. Kylie is doing